believe very strongly that trans issues and trans inclusion have become a huge topic, that hangs over everything in the past couple of years. I don't like the fucking turfs, okay, and the trans exclusionary people. I'm not a fan of trans exclusionary radical feminism. I guess you could say that I have some sympathies with feminism and feminist thought. I don't agree, however, with the feminists who are trying to basically exclude trans people from everything. I've had my disagreements with them for a long time, and I've even bullied Bug Brennan back for everything that she said. I just didn't want to get caught doing it openly, and saying the things that I had said, that I wanted, that the thoughts that I was having about her while she was doing this. But you don't want to. You probably don't want to actually see what I'm thinking about her. Where it's just like she. It's hard to tell, that she's actually female the way that she looks, and that's what I was having thought wise when she was doing this bullying, and it was just like, oh well, you don't look like a girl either. So yeah, you're kind of failing to pass as the sex that you were actually born at from my eyes. And so what are with Bug Brennan and everything that she was doing, it was just kind of a cue for your hatred. So you know I'm with the trans community on this. I'm a little bit annoyed that she hasn't. I'm annoyed with the way that there's been tolerance and inclusion preached, but that and inclusion, and the inclusion part of that tolerance has only so disappointingly often ever extended so deeply. Like trans identity, apparently, didn't get it, included in things, and it was like we had Vanille, who was the gay character. We had, all of that growing up. And I read Magic's Pawn, by the way. I was, I by that point in my life, though, was already looking for an alternative to religion. I mean, I was quite young, but I was done with Christianity, and I'm still done with Christianity. I'm done with it. Like, 20 fucking years later, I will never be a Christian again. Just throwing that out there. I'm not, there's no rational reason why I would ever return to Jesus, and ever. It's not even up for debate as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not going through a phase. I'm not interested, and I never will be again. Just the same way, like, I'm child free by choice, and that's not going to change either based on, my surroundings, or the things that are changing around me, or my life changing or getting better, or my income levels rising, or anything. And I realize that I'm meandering but this thing, like, I have said of Mercedes Lackey that I perceive her to be, somebody that has gone out of her way to include otherwise marginalized identities. But like I'm finding out that the thing is that people have hated about her is that she hasn't gone far enough to include trans people. And of course, I'm thinking, to myself, like, nothing will ever be good enough for some of these people. Like I'm frustrated, myself, where it's just, she raises the standards, and then what happens is that because her books are more inclusive, now everybody wants, to push all inclusion in everything, and they want to push it all the way, down and deep. And it's like, you're not like, can we not be grateful for how far we've come already? Is what I'm trying to say. Like, is there no gratitude for us, for the people that got us, the push that got us as far as we are right now today, and who did the most heavy lifting where it was concerned? Um, I guess, like, J.K. Rowling is persona non grata at this point for being a turf. I don't buy her books anymore because of it. Like, if I want to experience her stuff and continue the thread of interacting with her content, I will pirate it myself because I've got good connections in that space. And I'm like, why pay? Why send her another dime? Lackey, however, is a little bit different than J.K. Rowling. I mean, Lackey, she, unlike J.K. Rowling, it wasn't like Vanell in her book, you know, was declared gay after the fact, like Dumbledore was after the very last book was released. It was like, oh yeah, that character that I had was gay. We knew Vanell was explicitly gay going into Magic's Pawn. We it didn't, we like some people reading the books didn't, described it, saying that they didn't realize that he wasn't going to change over the course of the books and that this was just what he was, but she did. She included a gay character like way back in the fucking 80s. You know what I mean? And it's like Lackey included those people, and has lived an entire life, preaching tolerance and inclusion, but got a little bit awkward about the idea of writing a trans character into her books, and it's like people hate her over this one little flaw, and it's been magnified and magnified and magnified into a much bigger deal than it actually should be, because it's like we should feel at least some gratitude for towards her for getting us as far as we are now. It's like everybody else, they do see the way that, inclusion matters in fiction, but it's like I feel so frustrated because it's like if we go back in time and we like excise it and we remove her books from existence and erase her and we take her out of the picture, it's like would I can see a world like that being a lot worse for tolerance and inclusion than the one we currently occupy. Like I don't know that it would be a better world, you know, if we went and did that. I really don't. I don't think that Mercedes Lackey's impact has been entirely poisonous. I think that she's been like less than stellar on trans issues. That's what I wanted to say about all this. And this thread, is trying to illuminate a much larger question, though, which is how unfortunately these attitudes are baked into the structure of science fiction and fantasy, because her books were being published out of the Chicago house, and they were having issues with the copy editors actually getting theirs through with writing characters, that it would just constantly be corrected by the copy editors into he, you know, and they would do it one last time before actually publishing it, without the author's consent and everything, and just, edit things the way that they wanted to do it. So they edited things to check for consistency and everything. That's what the copy editors do. And I didn't know a lot about copy editing, but they would give her grief over the things, and do the work of actually correcting her work. And she's now old and accomplished, and the thing is that she's got to have a copy editor, that's got to give shit grief about things, and everything has to conform to the Chicago style manual, and manual of style. And I'm looking at this, and the Chicago manual of style, like, has changed. It has been updated at this point to where it now has a singular and generic specific, but the Merriam-Webster added this specific a specific sense of singular they to refer to a person that does not identify with the gender specific or binary pronoun. They just added it. They like Merriam-Webster just added one. On September 19th, 2019, this use of they was recognized in the 17th edition of CMOS published in 2017. But how does that not like contradict in that the publication was published before? See, it's asking an intuitive question. Like the Merriam-Webster was updated to add this on 2019, but the CMOS publication was like way back in 2017, and like they would have to come out with a new edition of it. Singular they is also used as a generic pronoun referring to a person of unspecified gender. Established usage is that nonetheless has been long considered informal. That has nonetheless been considered informal. As of the 17th edition, CMOS recognizes that such usage is gaining acceptance in formal writing, but still advises avoiding it if possible. For example, rewriting to use the plural generic singular they. They has been around for a long time, basically. Like so that's the CMOS thing that's been edited, and people perceive this as just um they perceive it like it's just a flimsy excuse, but I'm not so sure. I really am not. I would like to see trans people included, and it's good to note that she can't use that excuse anymore. You know, uh, she can't use it anymore. But like I'm mad because I'm asking a very fundamental question, which is Mercedes Lackey has gone out of her way to include certain marginalized identities, not every marginalized identity, but in doing so has perhaps sparked a world in which everybody is now considering the one group that has been the most neglected, and everybody's now thinking in that direction. Perhaps what I'm really trying to say is just all this stuff. Like, I guess you could say that I feel like she's being demonized because she doesn't have a trans character yet, you know? And that's the rub. It's like, do you realize how much she's done just to get us to the point where we would even be thinking about including trans people in the first place? You know, it's not like it was with J.K. Rowling, where J.K. Rowling, had a gay character that was explicitly gay, didn't not explicitly gay. Dumbledore was, not like he wasn't. You know what I mean? Like Dumbledore was not in Harry Potter. Like it's not written into the book itself that Dumbledore happens to be gay. It's something that you learn from J.K. Rowling interviews, outside her books after the fact, where it's just oh yeah, the headmaster of the school happens to be gay, and I just didn't have him referred to that way in the books, and I thought that was great because I grew up in a world where Harry Potter was the devil. The religious authorities were closing in response to it. They were like they used magic and that's all terrible, and that was the world of the 90s, that world continued on past the 90s. It didn't disappear after 1990. 1999 was gone. It's still with us, unfortunately. The Jesus camp is still, the people that are behind it have gone on and forward. Um, but yeah, so I feel like I'm like I feel angry, defensive, angry, because it's like we would not be in a world in which like trans people would not be pushing as hard as they did, and people would not be so pissed and thinking inclusion matters and going after these people and savaging them so much if we what I mean, like we didn't live in if we didn't live in a world in which these books were written in the first place, like with she's already pushed the line forward, a significantly, carried it forward a significant amount by doing what she's done. But no, we hate her because she doesn't have a trans character yet. Like, none of that makes sense to me.